try to cover 6 years of getting this defense together in 45, 50 minutes for you guys today. We'll leave some time at the end for questions if you have any, and I'll help you the best I can. But a couple of things I think are really important. We had at Morehead State Kenneth Fareed, who was the best big man in the league, one of the best players in college basketball. He was a center for us at Morehead State. And we're playing man-to-man, and they're running teams. Teams are just running ball screen action 25 feet from the goal every time down the floor. Kenneth's picking up cheap fouls and hedging or showing on pick and rolls. He's not around the rim to protect and shot block. So we said, hey, let's come up with something in this zone that I'm getting ready to show you, with something that helped keep our best big guy around the rim and out of foul trouble. But the biggest thing I want you to understand is this: there was no passiveness about our zone. It wasn't what I call a high school hairy 2-3 zone. No disrespect to high school coaches, but we didn't just stand in a spot with our hands up. We were aggressive. My 2 years at Southern Miss and playing exclusively zone, we were top 20 in the country in steals both years. So it gives you an idea of how aggressive our zone defense was. But with that being said, all man-to-man principles, I say all, for the most part, all man-to-man principles in our zone. And it started with our closeouts, okay? So a lot of people in zone may force middle. We force baseline in this zone, but our closeout was to the touch. By that, we meant one gap or one arm length. So Jordan, if you would come here for a second, when I mean one gap, we would close out to the touch. We would be one arm length away, having some nice, good ball pressure, which again sped up the offense and forced some turnovers, okay? So that was the biggest thing. When we closed out at that one gap or that one arm length to the touch, we were also what we call top foot on top foot. So our top foot as the defender was on the top foot of the offensive player, which was funneling or shading to the baseline side, trying to keep them out of the middle of the floor. So that's where it starts in regard to your closeouts, top foot on top foot at one gap, which means one arm length to the touch, okay? Then we would get into a situation where if we were bumping guys down, so say X1, the ball went to the wing, X1 was guarding the ball, and we worked evens with evens, odds with odds. So X1 would bump down X3, and X2 would bump down X4. All right, I'll show you on the board what we mean by that here in a minute. But we would teach our forwards, X3 or 4, when they closed out and took that initial pass, our terminology was the X1 or X2 that was bumping the forward down has to bump square. You have to bump square. If you bump on top, now the guy's going to punch that gap and drive the ball, play out the weak side, or draw fouls on your big guy. So our terminology was, when you're bumping a guy down, you got to bump square. All right. And then the forward that was leaving, he would have his stick hand up, and then his opposite hand, as he was going to bump to the corner, he would throw his opposite hand in the passing lane, making that guy that's making the pass from the wing to the corner make a slow hang time pass rather than a quick direct pass. And it was amazing just working on this in drill work, how many times that the guy throwing that offhand in the passing lane would get a deflection or knock it out of bounds or get a steal. So those were a couple teaching points on our closeouts, both with X1 and 2, and then when X3 and X4 were getting bumped down to the corner. So I'm going to go to the board now and show you a few things of what we mean by some of these things that we're saying. You see me all right, Coach?
Yep.
All right, so let's just say that the floor was set in a 1-3-1 alignment. Now, we played some zone defense this year in the G League. We actually played the second most possessions of zone, which was only 10 possessions a game, but NBA players are so great, it's hard to play a lot of zone. So in the G League this year, we played 10 possessions of zone, and we were actually #1 in the league in defense overall, but we were also #1 in our zone defense. So we feel like we did a pretty good job in it. But this was different in college, what I'm getting ready to show you, as opposed to what we did this year. All right, we called this zone Fist 1. We had 2 different zones, same rules and concepts, except that the bottom line is we would bump every time in Fist 2. In Fist 1, the floor would be set like this. X1 would have the ball. X2 would be here on what we call the high post choke. X3 and X4 were what we would term high and wide. So when you came down the floor, the opposing coach, many times, I'm telling you, even great coaches we would play, we'd think we were in a 1-3-1, but it wasn't. It was a 2-3 matchup looking like a 1-3-1 because the guards were in a tandem. So as we came down the floor, we wanted to have nice ball pressure. We knew that if the point guard happened to get beat, we had natural help position right there from the back guard and from the forwards, okay? So he would be into the ball, and if this guy stayed in the short corner or the post, as the ball went to the wing, X2 would stay on top, meaning the high side of the high post guy, denying it there, and X1 would be in what we called straddle position, which was just straddling the three-point line, seeing the ball. Now, the Mike man, X4 on the weak side, had to have a foot in the paint. If there was a post player, we would full front it, or we would at least discourage from the low side, and I'll tell you why the low side here in a minute. So if this big guy was working up the lane, we wouldn't front him this far out on the floor. We'd surrender the front, but we would three-quarter from the low side. Now, if this guy stepped to the corner and we were bumping, this is what I'm talking about in regard to bumping square. X1 would bump X3 because odds work with odds, evens work with evens. So as X1 would go here and bump, he had to be square, meaning like this, ball, body, basket, all right? If he bumped on top, as X3 was going to take the guy that went to the corner, now that's when this offensive player has a driving lane, or what I would call punch that gap to get inside the heart of your defense, okay? So where's that eraser, JB? All right, so as the floor would be set, all right, into what we call a loaded side. So now say the floor was set like this, the ball was here, X1 had bumped X3 down, X5 was here guarding the post, X2 was choking this down, and you had a point guard here, okay? The floor is set like this, X4 with a foot in the paint. Now, a couple of things that he did were very unique in our zone. As say X3 was caught in this bump, as he was bumping down and the ball was going here, X5 would have to stunt, okay? He would stunt, which meant as soon as the ball went to the corner, X4 was now going from splitting the midline, all right? Foot in the paint here on the wing, splitting the midline in the corner, but if X5's not back, then he has to go to the low side and three-quarter that post, not letting it go there. Well, what we would get a lot of times is this ball would go to the corner, all right, and X5 was stunning and staying, and he'd try to drive it to the baseline. Well, we would trap that right here with the forward, meaning X3, all right, as he's caught in the bump, he's going to trap with X5 in the short corner. Now we term this the cutoff guy. So now X1, who was guarding here, would deny the pass back out to this guy, not letting him make a easy get rid of it type pass. And the high post guy, who would always invariably dive to the rim, this weak side forward, X4, was going to him and what we called absorbing the dive guy. So let's go over that terminology again. All right, we're going to bump square. All right, we're going to stunt and stay. We're going to trap with the X5, the big, and the ball side forward. The guard in this position, X1, is the cutoff guy. He's denying this pass back. Even if he goes all the way to the corner, he's going with him to the corner to deny that pass, okay? And then X4, who's pulling to the midline, all the way to the ball side post if X5 isn't back, he's going to the dive guy to absorb the dive. And then what you have left is X2. There's two perimeter players left, the weak side skip and the point guard. He becomes what we termed the playmaker. So now we've got the cutoff guy taking this away. We've got the four-man taking away the dive. And now X2 needs to read the passer's eyes. If we get a great trap, body to body, skin to skin, high hands in the trap, he's got to throw a high hang time pass to the weak side wing or back to the point, and that gives this X2 guy a chance to make a play on the ball and come up with steals. If nothing else,
it is what we would call a non-penetrating pass. The pass is going to the outside of the zone, not into the heart of the zone. So it's a non-penetrating pass, and we could live with that, okay? So that's an example of a baseline drive trap situation. Again, this was an aggressive zone. Now, I'll show you an instance when we would get a short corner trap on a pass. You just saw the baseline drive trap, okay? So let's say they're in 1-3-1 again. All right, the floor's set like this. All right, X1's into the ball, X2's the high post choke, X3's high and wide, X4's high and wide, and X5 kind of shading or matching up to the short corner. A lot of high school and college teams, zone offense, they play with the short corner, then they end up getting some block in and skip it back scenarios. In the NBA, there's no short corner. They don't play with the short corner guy at all. So we didn't get this to the floor this year with our team in the G League. But in college, we would trap this and have a lot of success. So as the ball was going here to the wing, all right, and it's not a loaded side. There's not a guy in the corner, so it's a single side. There's no bump. There's no bump because it's a single side. We are in fist one. As this pass would go to the short corner, X4 would have a foot in the paint. All right, the cutoff guy would be X1. As he's going to bump this guy, he becomes the cutoff guy. And as he dives, again, X4 gets inside the dive guy. And you say, boy, coach, it seems like pretty quick hitting. But I'll tell you, we charted it one season, 72% of the time, all right, the guy that caught it in the short corner, when we were going to trap, would panic and just throw it right back to the guy he caught it from. So that allowed this guy, the cutoff guy, to run through and get some deflections and steals. And then the second look, almost always the second look, was to their partner diving to the rim, okay? And if this four-man or weak side forward, if it's the other side of the floor, it'd be X3, gets inside of this dive guy and absorbs him, that would lead to many steals. So it's, again, aggressive steals, baseline drives, we would trap it, short corner passes, we would trap it, but it's imperative you get that cutoff. Remember that term, you got to get the cutoff into the game, because if you allow them to just throw it right back here, your trap's useless. It's not worth doing. So again, cutoff guy's got to do his job, and then this back guard, X2, takes the first pass out if it's skipped out, okay? Now I want to talk to you a little bit about fist two, all right? Now fist two is the same concept as fist one, except you're going to always bump down. So you're going to always bump the forward down, even if it's not a loaded side. So if you know a team, for example, is going to run 4 out against your zone, or maybe 5 out, which all the NBA teams run 4 or 5 out. So we were in all fist two this year. We didn't play any fist one at the pro level, but fist two is just this simple. All right, X1, X2, X3, X4, and X5. And let's say the floor is again kind of set like this, and they're going to step a guy to the corner, run a cutter through. We would always be bumping. So say, for example, the ball went here, and this guy could step out. We were already bumping that guy down. X5 would stunt and stay, unless he was caught in such a bump that he had to fly at this guy and either run him off the line, or if he got driven, then X4 would come all the way across and be the base go or the rotation guy to take the charge or wall up, okay? So fist two, you're constantly bumping. And when you would do this, we did fist two a lot in college against this scenario. A lot of teams have the traditional 2 big guys, all right? We played DePaul one year at Southern Miss, and they went 3 around 2 like this, okay? So the floor was set here. We'd have, say, X1, X2, X4 would sit on top and sandwich, X5, X3 here, and yeah, we're good right there. So now they go 3 around 2, all right? They're just gonna try to pound that ball inside. DePaul had 2 really good big players back then. And what we would do is just bump this guy and sandwich. So initially, if X2 was here and X4 was here, and we were in fist two, as soon as that pass was made, X2 would go bump X4. Again, evens with evens, odds with odds. This would bump X4 down. And even though you're saying, well, why would you bump, coach, if it's not a loaded side or it's not a guy in the corner, why bump down? Well, it took away post entry passes, because when this guy would drop, he would sit on top and sandwich, and between X4 and X5 sitting on top and 5 behind, they couldn't throw it to him. And then X3 had a foot in the paint, just like man-to-man principles, as we talked about early, help side position. Then the ball would come back here. X1 would take it. X2 would kind of cheat to the high post. The ball would go here. X3 would take it. X5 would be pulling 3, either fronting or 3/4ing from the low side. As the ball was passed, now he would drop down and basically trap the post as X1 was bumping him over. And so that was your slide. It took away post catches. We very seldom ever had a big guy get off against us in this zone, because number one, we do a good job of fronting or taking away the pass, and their touches in most zone offenses are so limited for big guys, okay? So that would be an option or a scenario that you would be in fist 2. Another option or scenario that you would be in fist 2 is when teams would go four around 1, which we were in all this year. So now the floor is set like this. Say they got their 2 guys in the slots. This is the slots, 2 guys in the corner. And then they got a big guy, let's just say it's the 5-man that's gonna set some pick and rolls. So what we would do, we would not be in the tandem to start based on scouting, knowing they're 4 around 1. We would simply match up X4, X2, X1, X3, and then X5 on the big guy. So your match. Now, the one thing we would do is we would tell the guard here, if the ball is away from you, say the ball's here, X2, straddle that 3-point line. Stay high and wide with a foot in the paint. Now, if someone happened to flash, then you could drop a step and choke that off by showing an arm and being in the passing lane a little bit. But if the ball came back here, now X2 would have it. Ball went here, X4 would have it, all right? And then something that we really got in the game is what we call slap down steals. We don't want to give up middle penetration. We want them to try to drive the ball baseline. But when teams did try to drive it over the top, both in college and this year in the G League, we had a lot of success with this. When this guy was driving over the top to the middle, this guard we would call slap down. So he'd just go hard, like really hard, trying to go for the steal. And if he threw this pass out, what do we call that? We talked about it earlier. That's a non-penetrating pass. The pass is not going into the middle or the heart of your zone. It's going back out. So then we'd recover on the catch and we'd be there. Say the ball gets swung here, then it gets swung to the corner, and this guy drives it over the top. Well, now X1 would be the guy that would be in slap down position, trying to go dig and deflect, come up with steals in that regard. Okay, so those are some scenarios where you would go fist 2, all right? Now, so many teams run pick and rolls or ball screens against zones, right? So I'm going to show you a couple of things we would do against ball screens, all right? I hope everyone can see this, okay? Is everyone, we getting any complaints, Coach?
No.
All right, so now let's say they're 4 around 1, but they're going to go some ball. Let's go 1-3-1 first. Let's go 1-3-1. So say the floor set like this. Again, teams would run this against us in college, and I literally would be like, wow, I can't believe they haven't adjusted and figured out what we're doing. So we would be in fist 1, all right, which means we are not bumping down unless it becomes a loaded side with a guy in the corner. All right, everybody understand that. So X1's into the ball, X2's the high post choke, X3's high and wide, X4's high and wide, X5 is match. All right, so if the ball goes to the wing, X2 is choking down this guy on the high post, staying on the high side. All right, if the ball, let's just say this guy leaves the high post to go ball screen, all we would do is simply hand it off. So X1 would have been the straddle guy, right? He'd be straddling the 3-point line, odds with odds. As this guy would play off the ball screen, X1 would jump switch it, and your match back up again. You're just completely matched in the 1-3-1. And then the ball would get reversed this way. X4 has it. They'd go set a pick and roll, and X2 would take the jump switch. X1 would drop, and we just hand it off. And it was amazing. People are playing 25 feet from the rim against that, not figuring out we were just going to hand it off, because sometimes we would be in fist 2 and it confused them a little bit. So I'll show you what we would do in fist 2. But if it fist 1, if teams are ball screening like that, you can just hand it off. It's a convenient jump switch, and it shouldn't hurt you at all. Okay, now let's say that we're in fist 2, all right, because they're in a 4-around-1 type setting. And this is more pro style stuff right here, you'll see. So now, say the floor is set like this, all right? And the 5-man's gonna be here, X5, X4, X3, X2, and X1, okay? So the ball gets reversed a few times, it comes back, we're matched up, and they're getting deep in the shot clock, and the ball is here, X1's got it. Now, in college, we just went over or under the pick and roll based on personnel, predicated on who's coming off the ball screen. If this guy was a good shooter, obviously you're going over the top. If he was a non-shooter or a subpar shooter, obviously you're going underneath the pick and roll. At this level, we tried to blue it, which means keep it on one side of the floor. But I'm going to stick with just showing you what we did in college today, all right? So as this pick and roll came and took place, all right, X5 would pull up a little bit because there's no one else here to worry about, all right? And as this guy, let's say he's a shooter, we're going to fight to get over top of this pick and roll. As he's coming over the top, X5 is just kind of zoning, and X1 has to get over the top, pursue to try to get back in front. Now, here's what happens, and here's what good coaches try to do. They try to run you out of men to the corner. And almost all zone offenses or zone set plays for a shooter, they're usually coming to the corner and they try to run you out of men. I'll show you what I mean by that. So let's just say that X1 hits the screen and dies, which if he does, you got to be on his tail and not allow that to be okay. But if he does and he dies and X2 comes over to help get this ball stopped, here's inevitably what happens. The ball goes to the wing, which means X3 has to take it. Now they go to the corner and they run you out of men because you got your big guy and a long closeout having to cover the corner. Does that make sense? So what we did to eliminate that was we called this the straddle position, like I talked to you about earlier, and you'll see when this comes into play. All right, so the pick and roll is being set by the 5-man. The ball is here. X1's here. X5 is pulled up a little bit. They got a shooter in the corner. They got this guy here on the wing. They got a guy set below. All right, you see a lot of that, or a set play similar to this. So what we would tell that back guard to do when this pick and roll is taking place, they have to be high and straddle that line. They have to straddle, and here's why. As this guy comes off, if X1 hits the screen and dies, now if this guy is deep at the high post area, they just direct line pass it and either shoot it, or that's when X4 gets in this closeout and they run you out of men to the corner. So if this guy would get high and straddle as he's playing off the pick and roll, now this offensive player has to get higher on the floor, okay? He's not in what we would call the scoring zone. Now X4 can stunt and stay, and X2, who is in the straddle, just picks a spot and meets him on the floor if he tries to drive it. Again, that key now, I've seen every zone defense, 6 years of doing this, every zone offense, known to man. Every zone set play, every zone offense, we've guarded it, okay? We've got our tail whipped on a lot of actions too and learned how to guard it better. But that straddling from the back guard is something that most coaches don't teach or haven't heard. And we just came up with that because teams were constantly running us out of men and getting shots in the corner. So we said, what can we do? Well, why have your back guard here at the high post if there's no high post there to worry about? So we put him in straddle position, again, straddling the 3-point line. As this guy comes off the pick and roll, if the guard guarding him gets hung up or dies on the screen, he's high, making this a high pass where X4 can stunt and get to the corner rather than being in the scoring zone where he walks right into a shot, or X4 has to take him, and then again, they run you out of him into the corner. All right, so again, that term with the back guard straddle is very, very important. All right, trying to see, there's so many different things to cover here. I'm trying to think. Oh, I know one thing I really wanted to cover with you, and we did this in our game against Louisville when I was at Moorhead. They had a really good guard. I think it was Sosa or Steve. I can't remember which one at the time, but he was a really nice player. And they would try to run you out of men in some actions they did. They had some good shooters in the corners, Kyle Couric and some of those guys. And so what we started doing is what we call black pick and rolls or fire pick and rolls. And all that was we were going to trap it, and we were going to trap it from the back guard. So envision this, all right? The offense, say, is set like this, and defense is here. X1 is bumped X3 down, the ball is here. X2 is in straddle position right here, all right, straddling. X4 has a foot in the paint because the ball is weak side, foot in the paint just like you would in your man-to-man, okay? It says mute on here. I hope that's not us, is it?
No, that's me. That's me.
Okay, we're good. All right. So here's what we would do when this pick and roll started to take place. As this guy left, the guy guarding the ball would really get into the ball and try to get over. The guy guarding the ball has to get over. All right. And X2, rather than staying in straddle position, he would go fire or black this ball screen, all right? And then if this guy was a pop guy, then X3 would try to run through that ball. If he was a roller, then obviously X5 absorbed the roll, and then we would really, really lift X4, and if this guy came out of that pick and roll and panicked and tried to throw this pass, we were running through that ball, getting a layup. Okay, so that's another way of guarding ball screens. And, you know, back in the old days when I was playing against the zone, nobody set a pick and roll against the zone defense. Nowadays, you see it continuously. So that's something that if your regular pick and roll coverage isn't working or it's struggling, or the opponent has a great guard. I know when I was at Moorhead State, Murray State had Isaiah Cannon, great college guard. We did some of this against him. You know, and again, this year at the G League level, we did some of this, particularly late in the shot clock when you know they were going to go pick and roll for their best playmaker. We trap it, make him give it up, and make somebody else beat us. So again, we call that black fire. You may have a different term you have for trapping pick and rolls or ball screens, but we would go with the back guard. The guy guarding the ball, again, is making him get over the top. And then that weak side forward is lifting, trying to run through that. The only pass you're really giving up in this is that long diagonal pass, which is going to be really hard for this guy here to see if you have a good trap and good ball pressure on the handler. All right. All right. I'm trying to get through as much as I can here. This is another thing teams would run against us, and it was such a convenient switch for us. Say they're in a 1-3-1, all right? A lot of college and high school teams run this, as we talked about, all right? X2, X4, and X1's into the ball. Let's just say they've reversed it a few times. They're not getting the look they like, and they just go mid-pick and roll. So X1 drives it over. This guy leaves the high post for a mid-pick and roll, and they're going to go pick and roll and maybe roll and replace like a lot of college and high school teams do. So X1 stays in the ball. Now as he comes back off the ball screen, X2 is just right here. Now he's going to jump switch it. It's not a flat, casual, lazy switch where maybe he comes off and X1 stopping at the screen because he knows a switch is coming. So he just jays you up and gets an open look. It's a jump switch with a stick hand. All right. So when he comes back to the middle, X2 takes it. Now you say, well, what if the guy pops? Well, as X2 is now into the ball, if he pops, X1 just takes it and you're fine. If he rolls, X5 absorbs it And if they replace with the other big, then X1 would take the replaced guy. So you're still perfectly matched up. Again, on that mid pick and roll, it's a jump switch. It's not a lazy casual switch. It's a jump switch with a stick hand. All right, now let's say they're 4 around 1 and they go to a mid pick and roll. So the floor is set like this. All right, X5 is here. We're matched. X3, X1, X2, X4. All right, they've reversed it a couple times. Same scenario. All right, so now you're going to say, well, maybe they're going to run you out of men if they get to this point. So let's just say the 5 comes up here and they mid pick and roll. All right, now this guy's going to jump switch it. He's got to be here. And now that's when you get X5 having to cover the corner. That's not, when teams are 4 around 1 and go mid pick and roll, it's not as convenient of a jump switch. 1-3-1, very, very convenient. In this instance, you're going to probably only black or fire mid pick and rolls in 4 around 1 if you have a really athletic, fast X5 guy that can get the corner covered. Okay. So again, fire or blacking pick and rolls. Here you go, coach. All right, let's see here. Trying to think anything else. What made our zone so unique is that we guarded different actions in certain ways after getting our tail whipped. Like, and I was at Morehead State, we played West Virginia. Coach Huggins obviously had a heck of a team, but this is our first year, maybe second year of playing the zone. And here's what they would do. They'd have the point guard here and he'd just dribble it down. So you got X1 into the ball. They'd have their 3 in the corner. So we'd have X3 here. They had this big 5 Russian dude, big guy, that 5 minutes, this big bald-headed Russian dude with a beard. He's just a monster. And we're battling like heck at 6'5" or 6'6", trying to front him. But we'd be working here, all right? And then our back guard, X2, would be here. And then X4 would have a foot in the paint. And so this is what they would do. They would overload the entire side of the floor. And this is how we used to guard it. So they'd have their other perimeter player here, and they'd flash their forward to the ball side elbow and have a complete overload. Well, me being a young guy, not knowing the zone perfect yet and trying to make some adjustments, learn, etc., all we would do is choke that down with the back guard, taking away the pass. Well, this guy with the ball would take a dribble or 2 up. He'd go guard to guard to a really good shooter, and they'd have 1 of 2 things. Either X4, who was worried about the lob on that huge big guy, was here helping, would be late, and he'd just shoot it, bang 3. Or you got a big guy and a closeout, a long closeout against a combo guard or a wing player driving it to a cleared side of the floor. So after we got our tail beat by about 112 that night, we went back and we said, okay, we got to do something to guard the overload action differently. So you would literally hear our team in the years to come. We named it West Virginia. So anytime the team would run a complete overload, what we started doing, X1 would be in the ball, X3 here, X5 here, X4 would have his foot in the paint. As this forward would flash, okay, we would go with him, play on the low side, and deny that pass to the high post. Now the back guard, who if you remember previously, we had choking that pass down, would be in straddle position. So as this guy drove it up, and went guard to guard, now he's easily there on the catch to take away the shot. And if he rips it and drives it, number 1, it's against the perimeter player, a small guy that hopefully can guard him a little better. And X4 was sprinting back to help get this thing cupped or take it away from getting all the way to the rim. So we called that West Virginia action. That was just one way or one action we did. And a lot of times teams thought, when they ran this against us, that we had went man-to-man, and we really hadn't. It was just the fact that we knew how to guard that overload situation, okay? I've got 7 or 8 minutes left here, and I want to keep trying to get through some things, but then give you guys a chance to answer some questions, all right? I tell you one other thing I want to get to, which was unique, all right? And again, we got this, Matt Grady that was on my staff at Morehead brought this from Louisville. But if the ball let's say they were in a 4-out alignment, all right, X4, X2, X1, X3, and their 5-man would come work in this triangle, post to post, maybe come in that high post area looking to catch some. Our rule was anytime the ball went to the high post, X5 had it, all right, but he had to hold 1002. We would surrender that 15-footer with a late contest, and we would just say, hey, our term was that is not going to beat us over 40 minutes. It's a tough 2 from a big guy, usually a 4 or 5, over 40 minutes. He may make a few, but it's not going to beat you. So what we would do, if the ball was here, all right, this guy would be in straddle position. If the ball came here, now this guy would be in straddle position. And if X5 was kind of zoned up and this guy flashed, the ball went here to the high post. Now we were in man-to-man until the ball was thrown back out of the high post. So I'll give you an example. If the ball went here to their 5-man, usually most teams will look to dive a guy right to the rim. All right. So X4 would have to snap his head and go with him. X5 was holding low, 1001, giving this guy time to get matched up. All right. This guy may lift. X3's going with him. All right. This guy may go here. This guy may tilt a little bit. You were matched up and you were man-to-man. Now, what we got a ton of steals on, again, I tell you, this was an aggressive zone. Top 20 in the steals in the country, 2 straight years in steals, like I said, at Southern Miss. And we pressed, but it wasn't like a gambling over-aggressive press. It was a token press back to this aggressive zone. When this ball would go to the high post, just like we've labeled guys slap down steals in different instances, these guards became slap down steal guys. So as he caught it and faced up, let me see that real quick. I'll clear the floor a little bit for you, make it cleaner. So let's say X5's holding, all right? X4 is matched here. X2 is matched here. X1 is here. And X3 is matched here. He cuts, so X4 goes with him. 5-man's got the ball. As this guy puts it down, if he goes left, X2's going hard, slapping down, trying to steal the ball. If he goes right, X1's a slap down steal. We're not helping from the corners on that because then they're going strong side, kick out, bang 3 to the corner. The steals are coming from above the ball. You're slapping down. All right. So when that ball would go there, you'd have a 4 or 5 in most instances, not a great playmaker, not a guy that's really good off the bounce. And you got your 2 little guards. I had 2 little tough, hard-nosed guards at Southern Miss. They get steal after steal when the floor was set like this. So that's an instance of when it goes to the high post, we go man-to-man. Now you say, well, Coach, when do you decide to not go man-to-man? And you could do one of 2 things. I've played it both ways. You can stay man-to-man the rest of the possession and just guard. And again, you've done all your man-to-man closeout drills, all your man-to-man shell drills, and practice every day. So it's not like guys don't know how to guard man-to-man. But let's just say X4 went with the cutter like we talked about. All right. X4, this guy cut all the way across, and X4 went with him because the ball's right here. And we're man-to-man, high post catch. He goes with him. Well, now this guy decides, I'm just going to kick it out. I don't feel comfortable. I'm going to kick it out. Well, then our term was reshape the zone. And you would hear, again, you'd hear our team yelling, reshape, reshape, reshape. And all that meant was, now X1 was into the ball. X4 sprinting back. Since the ball was here, he'd have a foot in the paint. If the 4-man that dove stayed there, X5 would be matched there, and you're in your regular zone rules. So high post catch, your man-to-man. He may take it a bounce, cross it over, not like what he has, kick it out, and then boom, it's reshape, 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 and you're back into your zone. All your rules are on, okay? So those are, I'm going to show you one more set because I know a lot of teams in high school will run this too against the zone. One more thing. You've probably played against a baseline runner, right? They got a great shooter right here. Guy that's really their go-to guy. They got their 5, their 4, and their playmakers out here on the floor. And you're going to look like this: X4, X5, X3, X1, X2. All right, you're basically like it's 4 round 1. As they set this baseline stagger for the shooter, X3 is going with them to the level of the screen. Now he's going to sit on top of the 5. X5 is going with them to this screen. He's going to sit on top. And as this guy comes to the corner, X4 is taking him, and you're matched. So now the floor is set: X4 here on the shooter, X5's here, X3's in weak side position with a foot in the paint. All right, so you just stay on top of everything, and you're right there on the catch on the shooter. Then again, if this guy's their best player and they're running stuff to him, and he tries to put it on the deck to the middle of the floor, what do we have? We have a slap down steal situation where X2 goes hard as heck trying to come up with that steal. Now, if the ball's reversed back out, it goes here. Same principle. He's running on that baseline runner action. We hand it off, we hand it off, we hand it off. Again, you're staying on top of all screens, and you should be right there on the catch, okay? So I know this is a lot of stuff to cover. Again, you got to understand, 6 years we put this zone together and how we guard different actions. I didn't even get to all the actions we've guarded. Obviously, literally, I've seen every zone offense known to man. But I think the biggest thing is you got to remember, number 1, ball pressure. You're closing out with 1 gap, hand, 1 touch, 1 arm length. When you bump, you're bumping square, so you don't give up driving lanes where guys can punch the gap on you. All right. If you're trapping, you got to get that cut off into the game and make sure that guy's not letting them throw it out same side, because that's an easy release valve for them to just throw it right back where they caught. You can't let that happen. All right. And then when you're guarding in actions, you have to be talking. Like any defense, press, man to man, it doesn't matter. If you don't communicate and talk, you're not going to be very good. And we labeled these actions with certain names over the years, and we got pretty good at it. So again, pick and roll coverage. We talked about whether it's getting over or under predicated on personnel. But the biggest thing is that back guard being straddled, making the offensive guy really lift high on the floor. So the forward just has to stunt and stay rather than go get to a shooter. Now they run you out of men to the corner. Can't let that happen. And then blacking or firing pick and rolls with that back guard to get it out of a great ball handler's hands, especially in the high school level. Coaches, if you got 1 or 2 guys that can play on the other team and you fire those pick and rolls and make him give it up, I mean, you're going to live with those other guys trying to beat you on most nights. So those are some things I think can help you. Again, it's same zone. There's 2 zones within the same rules. Fist 1, you're not bumping unless it becomes a loaded side with a guy in the corner. Fist 2, you're bumping every single time with the guards when it goes to the wing and playing your regular rules. So I hope that that's helped. I'm sure some of you have some questions. I'm going to turn back around and get it. Well, I tell you what, I may have to show you stuff on the board. So why don't we go ahead right here with the moderator. If they have some questions and we have time, I'd be happy to answer them.
Absolutely. Coach, you said you like to trap short corners. Do you sometimes, there was a question, if you like to trap just long corners as well?
Yeah, so if you're trapping the deep corner catch, you're asking?
Yes, sir.
Yep, okay, so same principle here. All right, so the ball, let's say they're trying to run you out of men. All right, X3 was here, X1 was into the ball, X2, X5 is here, and they're trying to run you out of men to get a corner 3. So now X4, his rule when the ball is here is a foot in the paint, right? But as soon as that ball is being thrown below, he's splitting the midline. Now, if we're going to trap that, X5 is going, X3 is trapping, X4's got to come all the way around and get to the low side of that big so he can't play with his partner right here. And then this cutoff guy is denying that. So again, with a good hard trap, the only pass this guy's going to have is the long skip or the long diagonal skip, which again, if you have a good trap and you get that cutoff into the game, you can get a good trap in the corner. You know, when we were at Morehead State, Jeff Neubauer, who's at Fordham now, was at Eastern Kentucky. He's a really, really good offensive coach. He'd been with John Beeline, and he recruited certain type of guys. He always wanted at least 4 shooters on the floor, and many times his 5-man could shoot it too. So they would be constantly trying to run us out of men to the corner in different actions that they ran. And that's what we started doing. We would just go trap the deep corner, and then he'd stop running that stuff because he didn't want us to trap him in the corner any longer. So that's how we would trap it. That was the rotation. Very similar to the short corner trap. Just in this instance, obviously, we're trapping the deep corner, but you can't let it go back to where it came from. That's the key.
Great. Coach, would anything change if you would have to defend horn action?
What action?
Horns.
Yeah, that's a great question. That's one I wanted to get to. It's on the board, but I didn't get to it. So this is how we would guard horns. And a lot of teams at this level run horns against the zone. So they'd have a shooter, and we'd play it like this. So X2's here, X1 is into the ball, X5, X4, and X3. All right, so we're matched in the corners, and whatever way this guy plays off, if he goes here, X2 jump switches and takes that. If the 5-man rolls, X5 absorbs the roll. If the 4-man pops, the 1-man who jump switches this ball screen takes the pop guy. Same thing other side of the floor. If he goes here, all right, X1 jump switches, X2 takes the ball, X1 hands it off. If this guy rolls, X5 absorbs it. If this guy pops, the guy in the ball, X1 would take it, and you're matched up perfectly. So that's how we would guard horns. And at this level, a lot of teams did and do run horns, and it never really hurt us.
Great. Coach, when you're preparing for a game and you know you're playing against a team that has players that can all of them can shoot threes, like, is there anything you want to change in preparation for that game?
Well, I think this, and that's kind of like at this level, so many teams have 4 and 5 guys on the floor that make threes, so you don't play a lot of zone. We played the second most possessions of zone in the G League this year, and it was only 10 possessions a game. So ideally, if you're playing against a team with that many great shooters, you're probably not going to play a lot of zone. However, in college, we would stick with it. We would just be in fist 2, which meant we were bumping on every catch. And we would trap corners occasionally to try to keep them out of rhythm. And other than that, we really just kind of lived with it. You may have certain guys that become runoff guys. Instead of just closing out to the touch through personnel or scouting, you're going to run this guy off and make him put it on the floor. But usually fist 2 allowed you to be matched up. And again, if a team can space the floor with 5 shooters, that's tough to guard in any zone. So they're not ideal, but again, fist 2 where you're constantly bumping, and hopefully your X5 has enough athleticism to get to the corner sometimes when they do happen to run you out of men.
Great. What would be the best way to prepare against, or how do you address, lack of rebounding in the zone? Because
well, that was the point I was going to make before we left today. It doesn't really matter, guys, coaches, ladies out there, what defense you play. If you don't make people guard the dribble and you don't make them block out and rebound the ball with 2 hands to end the possession, it doesn't matter. You can draw up all this tricky shit on the board and how you rotate with different guys flashing here, there, trapping this part of the floor. It doesn't matter. You got to guard the dribble at the end of the clock or the end of the possession. And then when you do make a miss, you got to rebound the ball. So our deal was always 5 guys in the paint. Every time a shot went up, and we watched a ton of film, all right, a ton of film. But when this shot went up, all right, you had to go hit a guy. I don't care if it was 3 guys that were hitting 1 guy. As long as you were hitting someone, I was cool with that. But if you're not hitting a guy, we got problems. So say the shot just happened to go up from the corner. This guy would check. You got to hit a guy. Maybe you got a weak side guy flying in. Maybe these 2 both hit him. And then this guard is coming down into the paint to rebound down. And we would chart it now. We had to have 5 guys in the paint. And if you didn't hit a guy, you knew you were going to get called out in film. Again, you may have this guard may come help on X5. This forward may go hit X5. I didn't care if there were 3 guys hitting 1 dude as long as you were hitting somebody. But, the old line in coaching, You get what you emphasize. And if you want to run the zone or play the zone and you want to, learn all the slides and get them to rotate the correct way, that's great. But if you make a miss and then you don't jump in a guy's ass when he misses a block out, you're wasting your time. You're wasting your time. I've had so many guys call me over the years and say, Coach, what makes your zone so different and unique? And yeah, there are some unique slides and different things we do. No question about that. But at the end of the day, those dudes knew they had to guard the dribble and they got to block out and rebound the ball. So if you emphasize that, usually you'll get it. But our simple fundamental rule was everybody's got to hit somebody and 5 guys have to be in the paint rebounding it.
Awesome. Coach, do you have any closing thoughts that you want to end it with?
Well, I just think this, again, one thing I think is important when you are studying zone, so many guys have called me coaching buddies over the years and said, okay, look, we want to play your zone, but, we're a man-to-man team, but we just want to sprinkle it in. And I simply say this, the way we played it, you can't have it as a secondary defense. It's got to be your primary defense. We literally, we did 5-on-4 get back, man-to-man. We did 4-on-4 shell every day, man-to-man. We did 3-on-3 rebounding drill every day, man-to-man. So we did a ton of man-to-man things, which help you get better at guarding the dribble and then finishing the possession with a block out and a rebound. But the way we played this zone with the unique slides and the coverage and the different things, you can't play this as a secondary defense. You could maybe play the nuts and bolts of it, but the uniqueness and the going with the overload West Virginia action and the different things that we've done over the years, it's got to be something that you really sell out to. And, there's not a lot of coaches out there that are going to say, okay, I'm going to play 32 minutes of zone in high school or 40 minutes of zone in college. And again, they might think it's soft, but this is an aggressive, hard-nosed physical zone where we get after people. And it's something that we worked on literally every single day. And we morphed it into something unique over years of getting your tail whipped on certain actions, as I mentioned. So that would be my thing. If you don't believe in it wholeheartedly, I don't think the way we play it is for you. If you really are a zone person and believe in zone defenses and that's what you roll with, this is a unique zone that if you learn it, I think can be really effective, particularly in high school when you only have 1 or 2 scorers on some teams you're going to play against. And in college, even in college, a lot of times there's only 3 shooters on the floor for the team you're playing. So again, you're not getting hurt by perimeter shooting the way maybe you would in the NBA. So if you're a zone guy, great. This is something to learn and maybe grow and work at it, but it's not a zone you can just play as a secondary or a part-time defense, in my opinion.
Awesome. Coach, I really appreciate you coming on today. I feel like it was very, very valuable information, and I'm definitely going to have to myself watch it on replay as well. So thank you so much for that, and good luck and stay safe.
I appreciate you having me on, and you guys stay safe. All the viewers that came on, I appreciate you, and good luck this season. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much.